Have you ever been in a situation where you try to bring up something that's important to you with your partner or have a difficult conversation and they just kind of shut down or try to avoid the conflict entirely? Well, that may be because your partner is conflict avoidant. Well, I know how frustrating that can be. But the reason they're probably avoiding the conversation is not because of you. It's because of conflict and what conflict means to them. And it can be really hard for someone who is conflict avoidant to overcome this kind of challenge in their relationship, but it is possible. And the best part is there's something that you can do about it as their partner. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some strategies that you, as the person who is in a relationship with a conflict avoidant partner, can do to create emotional safety so that when you bring up things that really matter to you, they actually get listened to and you're able to work through those conflicts with your partner and become stronger because of it. If you're new here, my name is Wes. I'm a couples counselor and licensed therapist, and I work with couples just like you who are struggling with high conflict or infidelity, and they're looking for a path forward to a deeper, stronger relationship. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about why your partner might be avoiding conflict in the first place so you can understand them a little bit better and get into their head. And then we'll go into a few strategies that you can use to co-regulate with your partner and help them create more emotional safety so that they feel better able to face these hard conversations. So first, let's understand a little bit about why your partner might be avoiding conflict in the first place. The first is just fear of emotional overwhelm. A conflict avoidant partner may feel that any emotion that's too intense is overwhelming for them. And so they avoid those things at all costs. You might know this about your partner if your partner prefers to stay kind of surface level with things. They might be great at joking around and some of the basics of relationships, but when you try to get to a deeper level with them, even about positive things, it might be difficult for them to kind of loosen up. And so when there are intense emotions at play, like in a conflict conversation, then those emotions might feel really overwhelming for them, and they might have a tendency to shut down or avoid the conversation entirely. The second reason is because of past experiences with conflict in their childhood. So kind of two things can happen here. One, if their household was full of chaos and lots of conflict, then your partner may have learned that conflict is really scary. It creates chaos and overwhelm in the family. And so therefore, they might have learned to adapt to that environment by avoiding conflict altogether so they can try to keep the peace. They may have a parent in their family or another family member who was very close to them growing up who avoided conflict entirely in order to not rock the boat. And that kind of modeling can really go a long way to creating a conflict pattern in the person who grew up watching that as well. This is a way of suppressing feelings and can be really effective if you're trying to avoid hard conversations entirely. The third reason is because of their attachment style. Someone who's avoidantly attached may struggle with conflict because they feel like it is a threat to their independence or emotional safety. And because of that, they avoid conflict similar to other large emotions like the plague. To them, even a minor disagreement might feel like the relationship is falling apart. And so they try to avoid that in order to keep the peace and maintain their independence and stability in the relationship. So how do we create a better environment so that our partner can feel more comfortable addressing these harder conversations in our relationship? So what is the role of safety in conflict, and what does it actually look like to have safety in your conversations with your partner? Well, safety is really important because without safety in the relationship, then your partner may feel threatened. And when they feel threatened, they usually default to their most usual behavior. And that means that they might shut down or they might try to run away, try to escape. Those are kind of the two main things that people might do. Both of these are forms of disengagement, and they are responses to the fight, flight, freeze response that is triggered when there is a threat that they detect in the environment. Remember that safety doesn't have to be the absence of conflict, it's the presence of connection. And that sense of connection serves as a bridge to create a path forward to having an actual in-depth conversation with your partner. So what does that sense of safety look and feel like? Well, it feels like not being judged. It looks like a sense of trust that the conversation isn't going to escalate into rejection. And it looks like having a belief for both partners that they're going to be treated with empathy when they bring something up and not criticism. Now, if you are somebody who has struggled with bringing things up to your partner and witnessing your partner shut down or evade, then having this kind of empathy for them might be kind of difficult for you because it can be so frustrating that you've gotten yourself into a loop where you just kind of expect them to react in a certain way. And you're really annoyed by the idea of them evading these really important topics for you in the relationship. Kind of frustration can lead to angry yelling or criticism or even a sense of contempt for your partner, feeling like they just can't stand up in the relationship. Those things are really nefarious and can really hurt the sense of safety with your partner that you're trying to achieve and that you need to achieve in order to actually have the conversations that you're looking for. So let's talk about how to alter your behavior a little bit to create that sense of safety for your partner so that you can begin to get what you're looking for in the conversation. The first step here is to approach the conversation gently. The Gottmans and their research talk about using a soft startup. Soft startup means approaching your partner with a soft tone and soft body language. So when you bring up this conversation with your partner, look at how you're talking to them. Pay attention to your tone and pay attention to the body language that you use. Are you coming in very stiff and in kind of a fighting posture? Or are you coming in a soft, gentle way? That is a good way to initiate the conversation. But the other piece of this is to avoid blame and criticism when you bring something up. And the best way to do that is by using I feel statements to communicate your feelings about events. So start with I feel and talk about an emotion that you've been feeling, and then talk about why you might be feeling that way. So describe the situation. The second step here is to focus on connection over resolution. And the best way to do that is to flat out tell your partner what you're looking for. Say, I'm bringing this up because I want to bring us closer, because I care about this relationship, or because it really matters to me and I want to get your opinion on it. By focusing on this sense of connection and how much you care about your partner, and that's why you're bringing up this topic in the first place, it can go a really long way to helping your partner understand what you're looking for and feel a little bit safer with the conversation topic in general. The next step is to be mindful of timing. Don't do this in the middle of an escalated, heated argument. Don't bring something up when your partner is feeling super stressed or you're feeling super stressed and overwhelmed. And I know how hard this can be in relationships. Everybody's stressed. Everybody works a lot. Lots of people have kids and people lead overwhelming lives. But if it does come up in a situation like that, then you want to try to pause and ask your partner if they have a few minutes later when you guys are both calmer or less stressed or something like that, where you can actually bring up this conversation and have a more productive way of talking about it. The reason here is that when you're feeling escalated, when you are in a high emotional state, the cognitive processing part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, actually goes offline. You are less able to form coherent thoughts and arguments and have a really productive conversation with your partner. So it's really important to be intentional about this. A good way to do this is to bring up something in a soft way. Say, hey, I have something I want to talk to you about. It's not bad. It's just something that I care about and I want to have a deeper conversation around. Do you have a few minutes later tonight to have that conversation with me? Okay. Now, you and your partner can work on the exact wording of this. I think it's important that you both understand how to language this in a way in your relationship that you both understand is safe and is not threatening. Nobody likes for their partner to come up to them and say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you about something because that can signal something threatening too. So come up with a code word with your partner, or even better, schedule some regular time throughout the week where you guys can sit down and actually have an intentional conversation, maybe during a date night, or the Gottmans suggest having a State of the Union meeting weekly where you guys get to talk about things like this. But regardless, be mindful of when you bring these things up because it can really set the stage for safety in the conversation. The next step is to self regulate and co regulate. Now, what does that mean? Well, self regulate means to regulate your own emotions. So when you have the conversation, notice if you are getting heated, if you start to get really angry, or if you're overwhelmed by sadness, and try to do some deep breathing or take a break if you need to. Do whatever you need to do to present a calm emotional state to your partner. The more you can do this in the moment, the more safe your partner is going to feel and the less afraid of these overwhelming emotions they're going to get. The other thing is co-regulation. Now, co-regulation really means that you are helping your partner regulate their own emotional state. This doesn't mean that you yell at them to calm down. That's the opposite of what we want to do here. But by being calm yourself, by talking in a gentle way, and by acknowledging that this might be a hard conversation for them, then you can really kind of set the stage for them to be calmer in the moment. So you might even want to acknowledge here and say, hey, I know it can be hard for you to talk about these things sometimes. I know it can bring up these feelings of like anxiety. Totally get that. I feel that way too sometimes, but it's really important for me to talk about this with you. And I want to make sure that we can do this in a way that feels good. Sometimes it can even help for you to sit down with your partner. And if you guys are open to this, do some deep breathing together in order to regulate yourselves before you even have the conversation. The next step is to use reassurance with your partner. In conflict avoidant partners, usually what we see is that any form of conflict or any form of hard conversation can really lead to a lot of anxiety for them, for the reasons that I outlined earlier in the video. So use reassurance. You can say things like, just because we're disagreeing doesn't mean that I love you any less. Just because I brought this up doesn't mean that I don't care about you. In fact, I brought it up because I do care about you. You can even just say, I love you so much, even though this is a hard conversation, it doesn't mean that I don't care about you or that I'm not here with you right now, really loving you. Having that kind of reassurance can sound kind of corny, but it can really go a long way in the moment to helping your partner feel a little bit more comfortable because in the back of their mind, that's what's going on. They're questioning your relationship constantly. They're saying, oh my God, does this conversation mean that this person's going to abandon me, leave me? Does it mean that they hate me? Does it mean that I've done something really bad and they feel guilty? So these are the kind of the things that your partner might not even be conscious of, but are often happening in the background, in the back of their mind. And giving them some verbal reassurance in the moment or a physical touch, a hand on the leg or the shoulder, reassuring them that everything's okay can go so far to helping them feel more comfortable in the moment. The next is to encourage small steps. This can be kind of hard if you have something big that's been on your mind that you want to talk to your partner about, but I would encourage you to start as small as you can. Pick some low stakes things that you want to discuss with your partner or that have been bothering you that you want to give them some feedback on and start with those first. The more that you practice this, the easier it will be long term for your partner to feel comfortable having these conversations. And finally, show gratitude for the effort that your partner is exhibiting here. It's really important at the end of a conversation to say, like, hey, thank you so much for talking to me about this. Or, hey, I really appreciated the conversation that we had last night. Honestly, I know it was kind of hard, but it made me feel a lot better. Expressing gratitude to your partner in these ways can go a long way to offering kind of positive reinforcement to them that having these conversations doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can actually bring you closer to connection. And that's what we're looking for here, you know? A few things that I want to mention you should try to avoid before we wrap up here. The first is don't force immediate resolution with your partner. I know that it's easy to get eager to find a solution fast. And if you are not the conflict avoidant partner, then you probably have a very clear idea of the outcome that you want from that conversation. However, it's important to not force that. Go slow at first and look for understanding and connection. I can't emphasize that enough. It's so important when you're having these conversations. Number two is to avoid escalating or criticism. These seem obvious, but it can be really hard in the moment, especially if this is something that you really care about or that you're upset about, that your partner has done, that you want to talk to them. So really try to focus on that self-regulation piece. Don't blame, don't judge. Really talk about your feelings, your emotions, your experience, and seek to understand before jumping to criticism. And finally, don't take their avoidance personally. This, again, can be hard, especially if this is a pattern that's developed in your relationship. You may feel like they're avoiding conversations with you because you are unlikable or because you're mean or because you were doing something wrong in the relationship. And in every relationship, there's things that both parties can do better. But it's important to not take that too personally. Understand that your partner struggles with these things, and this is just another aspect of your relationship. And the more you two can work on this as a team together and get better at it, then the deeper and stronger your relationship is going to be over time. Remember that creating safety with your partner is going to go so far to helping your conflict avoidant partner actually address some of the things that are important to you and have these deeper conversations or these conflict conversations that will create a more lasting, strong bond in your relationship. So over the next week, think of one small thing that you want to talk to your partner about and try to approach the conversation in the way that I've just outlined and create a safe, calm environment to have that conversation in. And let me know down in the comments how it went. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content. And post a comment down below telling me if this video was helpful for you, and if so, how. And any other questions that you have or that you want me to address in videos like these in the future. I also have a whole playlist on how to manage conflict with your partner, and I'm going to post that link down below too. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.